I will now call to order the meeting of the January 26th Farmington Town Council. We will begin, as always, with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now we move on to item C, consideration of special topics. With that, I will be turning it over to a video presentation with the Farmington High School Building Committee's Chair, Megan Guerrera. Megan?
All right, thank you very much, CJ. Before we actually begin, I'd like to thank the board for having us this evening. And I'm here with many representatives of the FHS Building Committee, including our professional partners,
Well, we have Megan frozen for a second. Let's bear with our technology until she gets back.
Am I better now?
You're better.
Okay. Where did I leave off?
You were introducing you're here with TSKP, I think you were going to say.
Okay, yeah, exactly. So we have our professional partners with us, CSG and TSKP. As requested, the team is proud to present to you the schematic design and cost overview for the new Farmington High School for your consideration. We have created a presentation to share with you this evening, and the team will be available to answer questions once the presentation is complete. So at this time, we now present to you the new Farmington High School.
Welcome to the Farmington High School Building Committee of Schematic Design and Cost Estimate Overview.
Anyone who can turn their volume up, I would recommend doing that now. Sorry.
Project scope of a new building designed by TSKP Studio within the net municipal project cost range of $105 to $110 million. This comprehensive new high school design has been achieved through the collaborative efforts of all stakeholders and focusing on the critical components of any project: strategy, people, process, and communication. We developed an overall strategy to meet as many of the items included in the Board of Education Statement of Needs as possible, while staying within the net municipal project cost range and eliminating educational disruption during construction. Our strategy worked and we delivered. This design addresses local, state, and federal requirements, consolidation of space, building systems, site improvements, and benefits to the community while considering fit and feel for the town of Farmington. Most importantly, this design meets the educational programming needs for our students now and in the future. Our goal was to bring the right people together to design a comprehensive solution that included feedback from our community and neighbors. We hired the right professionals and continually engaged with our district, town, and community partners. We adhered to a thorough design and review process that included evaluation of cost versus benefit and an understanding of optional design considerations and exclusions that limited our scope of work. Even through the required project pause caused by COVID-19, the committee continued to evaluate industry, design, and state legislative changes in order to adjust project requirements or the recommended solution. Most importantly, our work is nothing if it is not heard and understood by the community we serve. The FHS Building Committee has focused on transparent and timely communication before, during, and after the pause. We are committed to providing the information the Farmington community needs to make an informed decision at referendum. I would like to introduce Kathy Greeter, Superintendent, who will provide more details on the impacts of the building design and educational programming.
Thank you, Megan. The students and community of Farmington are disadvantaged due to the cost of maintaining the current Farmington High School's facility. Not only do we bear the economic ramifications of trying to maintain the current high school building, but the interruptions due to the constant repairs and inadequacies of our instructional space cost our children the educational opportunities they deserve. Facility issues impacting the quality of teaching, learning, and educational programming will be addressed within the new Farmington High School building design in the following ways. Advances educational programming and excellence. The new building design will increase the number of classrooms to accommodate current and future programmatic offerings within a flexible design which aligns with an exemplary 21st century education. In addition, the new high school facility will address currently undersized spaces such as the library, inadequate space for robotics, special education, science labs, and performance spaces. The new facility will promote collaborative workspaces that reflect the way students learn in today's and tomorrow's educational settings. Similarly, our auditorium and cafeteria will no longer be undersized for the population. These undersized spaces within our current facility are impacting scheduling, educational programming, and state and federal requirements. Fully inclusive and accessible. FHS must adhere to an Office of Civil Rights report indicating multiple areas of the current school facility that do not meet Americans with Disabilities Act requirements. Examples that will be addressed and fully accessible within the new facility are music spaces, the library, gymnasiums, classrooms, bathrooms, weight room, auditorium, stage, orchestra pit, outdoor athletic facilities, and all other spaces throughout the new high school facility. Promotes health, well-being, safety, and flexibility for the future. Rather than having a mostly one-floor, inefficient facility with narrow hallways that create overcrowding as students travel between classes with multiple entry points, the new high school design will maximize square footage to promote much-needed additional instructional space with state-of-the-art security measures. New mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire alarm, and building protection systems will increase occupants' comfort and safety while eliminating loud and aging mechanical systems that interfere with learning on a daily basis. As a result, the new facility design will promote students' well-being and maximize learning. With the new FHS facility, we will no longer be on warning status by the New England Association of Schools and Colleges due to current serious facility deficiencies, including ADA access, heating problems, leaky roof, inadequate science, cafeteria, auditorium, library, and media facilities, and other facility issues that limit educational opportunities for students. Enhances learning for all Farmington students. Our students need open, accessible, inclusive, flexible, and future-ready learning spaces that promote independence as well as collaborative spaces to mirror real-world work environments, public spaces to showcase learning and display work, and quiet places for reflection. Technology and imagination-rich learning environments foster a maker mindset, promoting innovation, creativity, well-being, and all elements of Farmington's vision of the global citizen. The high school's new schematic design being presented within this PowerPoint mirrors what we know our students need today and in the future in order to maximize learning and success while advancing educational excellence in Farmington. Now we'll return the presentation over to our architects from TSKP to share an overview of the new high school schematic design.
My name is Richard Sivek. I'm an architect and the principal at TSKP Studio for this project. Let's talk about site design. The diagram that you see on this slide shows the configuration of the Farmington High School site after the new building is built. The existing building is located on the western side of the site at the moment, in the area approximately where we show the 1928 building. Why did we place the new footprint in this location? Well, there are a number of reasons. For example, it can conserve resources. We don't have to disrupt a football field, and we can save a portion of the existing building, namely the 900 wing, for use in the new complex. Secondly, it minimizes disruption of activities at the existing school. This new building can be placed in this location, and construction activity minimizes disruption on the existing facility. And thirdly, it improves safety and security by consolidating the footprint into a compact shape and minimizing the number of entrances into the building. It also clarifies the traffic circulation around the building. The building design is very simple and clear. We showed you in the previous slide how the compact form of the footprint fits on the new site. This slide illustrates how the building will look from the outside. The upper illustration shows how the building will present itself to visitors. You can see that there's a minimum number of entry points. It's very clear. The entrance is right in front of you, adjacent to the administrative area on the left. The form is a composition of 3-story classrooms and 2-story supporting spaces. The exterior is constructed of very energy efficient envelope material. New masonry walls, glass, and roofing. New HVAC systems are included in the project, also very energy efficient. And the materials we're proposing are very durable and easy to maintain, quite unlike your existing building. We're proposing exterior masonry such as brick, thermally broken glass walls, as well as new windows and roofing. Farmington High School is more than a school building. It's also a public asset. Last year we had public outreach meetings to get feedback from the public, and we've incorporated some of the features that we heard were necessary. First of all, we have a separate public access point, which is illustrated in the lower right corner of this slide. That entrance is opposite the 900 wing that we're saving, and it's opposite the football field. This is the loud side of the building. This is where people can come in after hours to use the cafeteria or the gymnasium or the auditorium. On the opposite side of the building is illustrated in the upper right-hand corner of this slide is the eastern side. This is the quiet side, and this is the side that faces the neighbors. The only activity on this side of the building is academic, and there is no public access on this side. That pathway that you see is an emergency drive that's only available in case of emergency. So in this way, it's been very responsive to the needs of the neighbors. We are able to accommodate all of the spatial requirements that are listed in the educational specifications in the layout that you see here on the left side of this slide. This is a minimal footprint layout, and it divides very nicely into 2 halves of the facility. On the left side, or on the western side, are all of the large spaces such as the gymnasium, cafeteria, and auditorium. And on the right side are all the academic spaces such as the classrooms. The entrance into this building is in the low end of this diagram, where you can see that black triangle leading right into the main circulation corridor that leads you from the front to the back of the building. The after hours entrance is located on the left side, where you see the other black triangle that leads directly into the cafeteria that serves as a lobby between the gymnasium area and the auditorium. The 3-story configuration on the right is where all of the classrooms are located. These classrooms are larger and are flexible by having movable partitions in some locations. And as you can see, we've clustered these classrooms around breakout areas and faculty office areas. In this way, we've created learning communities, very focused learning communities. The interior of the new Farmington High School will be filled with natural light. By using skylights and clear-story windows, we can bring daylight from up above directly into the core of this footprint, minimizing the need for energy-consuming electric light fixtures. We're also planning to have ample circulation space so that students have space as they pass by each other from classroom to classroom. The atrium space that you can see illustrated in the upper left side of this slide shows the ample space that's available, and other activities can occur in this space. So in this way, it's more than just a corridor, it's also a multi-purpose area. In the lower left side of this slide, you can see the cafeteria space, a beautiful 2-story space that also is filled with natural light. And this space, in addition to being a cafeteria space, also functions as a lobby. It's a lobby for the gymnasium and as well as a lobby for the auditorium, which are located on the opposite sides of this cafeteria. The finishes are easily cleanable, very easy to sanitize, and very durable, such as porcelain tile on the floor.
I'm Mark Garilli, Project Executive for Construction Solutions Group. The following slide shows a brief overview of project costs broken down into columns from left to right with descriptions, original costs, and adjusted costs. The original costs were estimated in February of 2020, and the adjusted costs followed in May after the Town Council charged the Building Committee with sharpening their pencil to fall within a targeted net town share between $105 million and $110 million. Beginning with the first two rows, these categories are costs required to complete the project but fall outside the direct construction costs. On the first line, we have the architectural and engineering fees at $5.7 million. These fees include all the work required to design and engineer the building, including certified consultants in specialized fields such as IT, commercial kitchens and food services, universal design, etc. There were no adjustments to this line item in May. The next row incorporates all the professional fees at $3 million. These fees are also unrelated to direct construction costs and include such items as project management, testing and inspections required throughout the project, legal fees, insurances, bonding costs, etc. There were no adjustments to this line item in May. The third row indicates all of the direct labor, material, and equipment costs related to the construction of the site, the new building, and the cost to dismantle the existing buildings, including the demolition of the 1928 building shown on the site plan. The original cost estimate was $120.6 million. After adjustments were made to the scope of work, the final direct construction cost came in at $117 million. Next, you will see the costs allocated for all of the interior and exterior furniture, program equipment, audiovisual equipment, as well as any other technology-related items required to equip the school. The original estimate was adjusted down from $5.6 million to $5.1 million. The fifth row indicates dollars reserved for any possible unforeseen costs that may materialize during construction. These numbers were adjusted from an original $7.1 million down to $6.5 million. These numbers were adjusted to a new total project cost of $137.3 million. Next are the estimated state reimbursement costs. The town of Farmington is eligible to receive 20% of all costs related to new construction. The adjusted reimbursements equal $27.5 million, ultimately resulting in an adjusted net town share of $109.8 million, falling within the net town share target range, which you will see on the last line of the chart. I'd now like to turn it back to Megan to further review cost considerations.
Thank you, Mark. It is also important to understand what is not included in our scope of work or the project budget. We will cover both optional design considerations and exclusions. Optional design considerations are additional items of work that were considered during the schematic design, but were determined by the FHS Building Committee to not be essential to the success of the project. These items are not yet part of the scope of work or project budget, but will be considered for inclusion by the FHS Building Committee in priority order as we manage the approved project budget. They include a motorized partition between gyms at a cost of $90,600, stone in lieu of masonry on the exterior of the building, $541,500, a softball field, $275,700, additional furniture, fixtures, and equipment and technology allowance, $420,000. Excluded items are beyond the scope of work for the Farmington High School building project and will never be included in the project budget. We are asking the Town Council to consider each excluded item and determine the next course of action for each. Understanding that the schematic design presented includes the demolition of the 1928 building, we have documented estimates of either mothballing the 1928 building at a cost of $1,042,300 or renovating the 1928 building at a cost of $9,821,700. Also for consideration, additional energy saving initiatives for $676,300, a net zero physical plan, $9,144,800, or Route 4 improvements, $763,300. In conclusion, the Farmington High School Building Committee believes that this new high school facility is progressive, as the educational and community growth of Farmington.
All right, that does conclude the presentation. So we'd like to open it up now for questions and comments from the town council.
CJ, you're muted. CJ, you're muted.
How's that now? That's why the volume wasn't bothering me, I guess. I'll say turn down your volume. If anyone turned it up, you couldn't hear me anyway. So I'd like to thank the building committee for all the great work you all have put in, and just let everyone know, during this pause, the building committee was still working and getting things done. So I thank you. It's I think we're all excited to actually see this presented to us now. It's been a long wait, and I think we're ready to hear more. So with that, I would like to open it up to the council itself for any questions that anyone has. Where would we like to start? Ed, your hand is up. I see that. Go ahead.
Thank you, CJ. Yeah, first I want to thank everyone on the FHS Building Committee for all your hard work that you've put into this presentation. I think you guys have done a great job in addressing everything in the Board of Ed Statement of Needs, and also making the reductions that were necessary to get down to the town council's net municipal cost target range. Great job. I think this will be a great community asset, and I'm very proud of the thorough and thoughtful process that has taken place. It's been a long process to get us to this point. So with that said, I just wanted to say those few comments first, and I do have a question as well. With the, I guess two questions on the fixtures and equipment and technology that you guys were able to reduce from 5.6 million to 5.1 million. I was just curious if you could elaborate a little bit more on how you were able to achieve this. Were you able to use any of the equipment from the old high school, or were you able to just reevaluate and find other efficiencies or things that maybe you didn't need? And also on the owner's contingency, was that found to be a little bit too conservative in the original estimate, and that's kind of why you brought that down?
Why don't we take the owner's contingency question first, if we want to hand that over maybe to Chris at CSG to start?
Sounds good.
Sure, yeah. Hi, this is Chris Cycli, CSG. No, we still feel that the numbers we're comfortable with the estimate and the budget that we've put together. However, we just identified some areas where we might be able to reduce the overall, again, just by simply identifying. We're not suggesting that we change any of them. We're just saying that there is the opportunity to reduce the cost in that line item for the owner's contingency anyway.
For the owner's contingency, okay, thank you.
Right.
And
Same thing for so for the FF&E as well. Again, these numbers are just estimates. So we kind of said, okay, we could probably do with a little bit less in this category if we actually had to. So we identified a number in there as well that we'd be able to reduce it. But again, we're not making that recommendation, just identifying areas of possibility. Gotcha. There's no hard cost associated to either one of those values. So it's an arbitrary number that we think we can reduce if we had to, and then live by.
Okay, but it sounds like something that you're able to reduce but still meet all the statement of needs and everything that you guys were set out to achieve. So that's great.
Chris, can I jump in? This is Richard Sipek with TSKP Studio. I would like to supplement what Chris had responded to you. We actually, for the FF&E portion, went through quite a lengthy analysis of it. We broke it down into voice systems, security systems, computer and technology equipment, based upon prior experience on similar projects. And so we were able to use that itemized list and reviewed it with the facilities people and the IT people to make sure that we weren't undercutting. We were all confident that the revised FF&E budget is realistic. And that's why we presented what we did. Now, I should caution you that it's easy to spend money on furniture and equipment. So you'll see that we have included a contingency. So should the bidding be very favorable on furniture and equipment in the future, there could be the possibility of enhancing the furniture and equipment with later technology that really hasn't been created yet. So we believe the number is realistic. We believe on top of that number that there's a contingency line item that you may have seen in the presentation. So we feel very confident about these numbers.
Thanks for that supplemental information, Richard. And one last question, if I may. In regard, and either of you can answer this, just in regards to construction costs in general, like is now a relatively good time to take on a project in terms of construction costs right now in the near future?
So this time, again, this is Richard Sipek. I'll take the question first and then Chris can supplement it. We'll reverse the order in the answers we give you. So this is a question actually that has come up quite often when we had meetings with the building committee during the project pause. We did have the benefit of receiving bids during this pandemic period. And you know, we were all wondering whether the pandemic would have an effect on construction costs. Were there going to be additional safety measures taken by crews on the site? Were there going to be material shortages and so on? And interestingly, our experience on recent bids is that bids have been coming in less than were estimated. And the reason is that the pool of bidders has grown. If you can understand that a lot of the construction sector has shut down. Commercial work, retail work, office expansion has all come to a standstill. And all of those contractors who have been doing work in those sectors have suddenly emerged in the public sector. So you see a lot of competition in school projects, library projects. That's been our experience. And so is this a good time to bid? You bet. But you're still a year or so away from bidding after your referendum. So what's going to be the future? We've been cautioning the building committee not to take the most recent experiences and cut the budget. We have been recommending the building committee to keep the budget as is because it will bounce back. And so my prediction is that it will resume at the escalation rate that we've been seeing as average over the past 20 years. I hope that answers the question about that.
Yes, it does. Thank you, Richard.
Great.
Yeah, and this is Chris. I don't have anything else to add. Richard's exactly correct that it is a good time right now. However, you are more than a year away from bidding for this project and a lot can still change. So.
Okay, appreciate that, both of you. Peter, see your hand up.
Hi, everyone. I'd like to say thank you to everyone. You've put months and months and hundreds of hours of work into this. And I thank you for all your hard work. I'm going to ask one uncomfortable question, I think. I see everyone, we're trying to minimize costs and keep the cost to the budget that we assessed for you guys. But one area where I do not see any reduction is in professional fees and engineering and architectural fees, which is $8.7 million, which is a fairly good percentage of the project. So I'm just curious why we couldn't find any savings in there, because some of those savings in there could possibly buy us, we'll say, a softball field or something. I'd just like to know why we haven't seen any sharpening of our pencils on some very expensive professional services.
So this is
Sure.
Richard Sipek again. I'll go first, and Chris, maybe you can jump in.
Sure.
So as far as the first line item, architectural engineering design fees, we have a long list of consultants that we've included in the project. Security consultants, acoustical consultants, audiovisual consultants, even building code reviewers, professional cost estimators, and so on. So without going back to those consultants and asking each and every one of them to sharpen the pencil, which we certainly can do, but we have not done that at this stage of the game. As far as the other professional fees, I'm going to leave that to Chris to answer.
Right. So at least I know for the architectural as well as the fees for the owner's rep, which is our contract, those are fixed based on RFP results that we both went through that process. So those numbers are within that soft cost. There are several other line items within that large category, but those are representative of a project of this scale. There's going to be a commissioning agent. There's going to be testing inspections. There's going to be hazardous material inspections and monitoring, and we have all of those adequately represented in that line item, given the size and scale of this project. So those aren't quite as arbitrary. Those are realistic. There's moving services in there. There's it seems like a large category, a very broad category, but there's definitely some services in there that we know we're going to need, and given historical project data that we have, we know that we're going to spend the amounts that we've carried in there.
Okay, well, I get what you're saying, and I get that. And I just, I'm trying to, like all you guys and everyone else on this committee, is just find as many pennies as we can to benefit the students on this. And I'm sure I'm not the only one who looked at this page and just saw that there was no reduction in that. And I get it. All right. So I had to throw the question out there. I'm sure someone in the public might notice also. So I guess we'll leave it at that. And hopefully there'll be some significant savings on professional fees in the long run. Hopefully the lawyers and the bond people and the bankers aren't going to gobble up a lot of this money. So I just had to throw that out there. And that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Peter. Brian, I see your hand up virtually. You with us, Brian? Your mute is still on.
I just had to unmute myself. Sorry. Had to find my cursor. Thanks very much. Yes, as my predecessor just mentioned, I really am grateful to see just how detailed the work was in doing the planning for these drawings. More than we saw the first time we did this. I like the fact that we're doing what we can to keep within the goals. I think we've met a lot of them, if not exceeding them. And I really want to thank everyone for the work they did in accomplishing that before we bring this to the town. And I heard that there are still some opportunities for us to reduce costs, maybe through some renegotiations, and there are some savings to be realized if we act relatively soon, given the economy and the environment we're in right now. And my question really is how can we expedite this? Because I know that it sounds like we can't really do anything till this goes to referendum, and that really puts us behind the 8 ball. Are there things we can do to position ourselves better to act quickly prior to that? Is there anything that we can do? And what do we see as our next step here? Or is our next steps? Obviously, there's, holding public, meetings and doing the referendum, but are there things we can do while that progresses to move this along so we can take advantage or realize some of those cost savings if they're to be had?
Let me start, Brian, first in that, and then I'll ask my partners to kind of chime in and add some color to my comment here. But a couple of things that I can think of to take your overall question on next steps. So again, we bring this to you tonight as an initial presentation of the schematic design and the cost. We will be back with you again in February to provide additional detail around the feedback we're going to get from the community on the surveys that were sent out and went to every home in Farmington. And at that point, I think we are ready to have the conversations around when does it make sense for us to bring this to referendum. So over the next month or so, we've got some work to do. We've got some additional details and more people to meet with and discussions to have. Once that referendum date is established, or at least a time frame for the referendum, the majority of the work will be around informing the community, making sure everybody has all the information they need to make an informed decision. And that referendum date, again, if that's going to happen for us, in the springtime, potentially, based on further conversations, there's a lot of work we need to do between now and that date. Some of it that's required by the town, but also communication and work that we need to do for the building committee as well. Again, to close out this work and make sure that everybody has all the information they need. In addition, the building committee also needs to prepare the forms required for state reimbursement, which are due at the end of June. So there is actually a lot of work we're doing in preparation and to continue to push the project forward between now and referendum. So I do think we're aligned well within that time frame. Once we go to referendum, and if the project does pass at referendum, then we again are back at the table making some decisions on timeframes and next steps there. So again, we can take advantage of time at that point and start looking about looking through the process to see, do we start actually going into detailed design work right after referendum? Do we want to wait? That's a whole nother conversation we need to have, but there is opportunities there for us to condense the timeline. And in condensing the timeline, we're always going to reduce cost. So I think those are important, smart conversations that we still need to have. But really the answer is, I think between now and when the referendum is done, we have our work lined up and we have quite a bit of it to do. And then I think once we get through referendum, if we do that successfully, then we're back at the table to discuss how do we really condense that timeline and make the best use of the time we have in front of us. I don't know if Chris and Richard, if you want to add anything more to that.
Sure, this is Richard. So I would like to add that what I'm hearing this evening is a request by the town council to have the committee take another look-see to see if there's another opportunity to cut costs. You heard Meg mention the possibility of some adjustment in the timeline, which has a direct impact on cost because escalation affects the project. So if we can look at the schedule and if we can make any adjustments in the schedule, that there could be some savings there. I also heard that there may be an opportunity for renegotiating some of the soft costs. That's something that we can take up with the committee and then come back to you. I believe we're scheduled to come back to the town council in February. So at that time, we'll be able to come back and say, the committee has looked at it again, and here is their response.
Great. Move on to Chris Fagan.
Oh, okay. Yep, I'm unmuted. Thank you, CJ. I guess, for me, given my tenure on the board and as chair of the Board of Ed, I've been living with this project in multiple shapes or forms for years now, and I'd be surprised if I have any questions, and I really don't. I just want to make some comments and then maybe ask for a little further insight on something that I think may be helpful for the community. But obviously I'd like to thank Kathy Greeter and the entire central office for their efforts in getting this project going and continuing pushing it through. Ellen Sayuda and the entire Board of Ed, thank you for your efforts in doing this. Mark and Chris at CSG, Richard, Michael Scott at TSKP, and my fellow colleagues on the building committee for their efforts in pushing this through. But a special thank you to Megan. Your unparalleled commitment and dedication to this project is just it's inspiring, and I just want to thank you on behalf of myself and the entire town council and the community for everything you've done seeing this project through. So just thank you to the entire team, and it's been wonderful. Just a few additional comments. I mean, I've been involved in this obviously with the Board of Education, the building committee, et cetera. And, I still the liaison to the Board of Education. I report into the town council, and, I reported in last time that we're about to enter budget season, and, the Board of Ed is going to present the capital budget that requires another 6-figure project to fix the roofs at the high school. This project is something that needs to get done. It's a community project. It's not just for the schools, but the community is going to spend more and more money at this facility, and it's just time to get this done. And we have to be cognizant of that as we go forward. But I thought maybe just Richard, if you could, not to put you on the spot, I just want to raise maybe a couple issues, and I'll just raise them, and then you could take it and I'm raising them so I think maybe you could shed some additional light just for the community, not for me. I know the answers, but I think there are 2 issues I'd like to address, and one is just the 1928 building. It's obviously a very emotional issue with our town, that everybody loves the building. I know we talked about the options, but maybe just, go into maybe a little bit more detail, like renovation, what would be some of the uses of that building, et cetera, just quickly give some more depth on that, because it's a very emotional issue for the town. And then, I'm also on the Green Efforts Committee. We've just passed a resolution to sign up and join for a sustainable CT. And, if you can just shed some additional light for the community as a whole as to, some of the efforts in terms of additional energy savings and net zero project and planning. So I'll just turn it over to you, really just to help educate the community on those topics.
Sure, Chris. And I turned my video on. I realized it was turned off. This is a very rude thing to do. If you can see me, it's better that you can see me, I think, so that you know that there's a real person here behind this voice. So I appreciate the opportunity to explain a little bit more to the town council and to members of the public. First, regarding the 1928 building. The cost that we presented this evening in the slideshow includes the cost of demolishing the 1928 building and then leaving the site ready for additional improvements. I realize that that's a sensitive subject. There are, I believe, members of the community who would like to see the 1928 building preserved, possibly reused. So if you want to, let's say, mothball the 1928 building, there is a cost associated with that. And you'll see that in the report, that there's an additional cost of a little over $1 million to mothball the building and make it safe and prevent it from further deterioration. That's a net cost. So in other words, if we were to save the money for demolishing the building, which is in the budget already, and then add money to do some improvements to the building, make sure that it's watertight, etc., and it has some ventilation to prevent mold from growing, the net cost would be an additional $1 million on top of the budget that we presented this evening. Is mothballing enough? Well, maybe for some members of the community, it's not. Maybe some members of the community want to see that building renovated for future use, whether it's for town offices or perhaps for tenants, and save that space for future use by the town. If that were the case, then again, we would save the cost of demolishing the building and add to it enough money to completely rehabilitate every mechanical system, all the windows, all of the exterior roof, and so on. And the net additional cost to the project would be about $9.8 million. And you'll see that listed in the alternates that we've described. So we've struggled with this question because we know that getting rid of the 1928 building is difficult for some people. On the other hand, the school really has no use for it in satisfying the educational program. It is, as you can see by the site plan, separate location. So it's difficult to capture it and incorporate it into the new footprint. What do we do with it? And maybe that's a separate question that needs to be posed to the public. And I think the building committee needs some direction from the town council on how to handle this. The other question pertaining to energy from Chris is also a good question. We discussed it at quite length, quite a lot of detail with the building committee. And we are delivering to you in this design a very energy efficient building. Could we add additional energy features? Sure. For example, we have the potential for ice storage technology to offset the cost of electricity. In other words, you make ice during off-peak hours, and then you use that as an opportunity for cooling during the peak energy periods. The payback on that is relatively quick, but it does cost money to add that technology. So if you look at that list of alternates, you'll see that there is approximately $676,000 that could be added to the project for that additional energy saving measures. And it's a quick payback, less than 20-year payback. And then everything after that period is gravy. We also talked with the committee about net zero energy. Net zero energy is the technology that allows you to generate enough energy on site to meet the needs of the school. How do you do that? Well, in New England, the best opportunity is photovoltaics. So we would need to create photovoltaics somewhere on the building and perhaps on the site as well. We did a diagram that showed how much photovoltaics would be required. And the other possibility is geothermal energy. The geothermal energy is another proven technology. We've done it on school project in the past, and we would need to create a fairly large geothermal field somewhere. It could be placed under ball fields, under parking lots. But that additional energy saving measure to achieve net zero would add a cost of roughly $9.1 million. That's again on that list of alternates. That 9.1 million would be on top of the base cost that we already reported. And the payback period is greater than 20 years. So I think in the end, the building committee chose to consider that only as an add alternate and not an absolute requirement of this project. I hope, Chris, that answers the question or further elaborates.
Yeah, no, I thank you, Richard. It does. I mean, I have, obviously have no questions. I just thought a little elaboration would be good for the attendees and then the community as a whole. I just thank you very much. That was perfect.
And Richard, we appreciate seeing your face, so thank you very much. And I would add, I think for our February 16th meeting, possibly a little more elaboration on what that 9.8 million renovation would look like. Not for tonight, but I think in February it'd be good to have an idea for the 1928 building, what we get out of that type of renovation, because the public is going to want to know if they're deciding that. So again, not for tonight, but for another night. Let's see, going down the list here. There you go, Joe. Joe Capofaro, go ahead.
Thank you. Also, maybe for that meeting, can we get the numbers of the tax impact that we're going to be at 109 million? Would that be possible?
Yeah, I think we'll get from Joe tax impact on what we're looking at now that we've reduced, and we appreciate you all coming in within our municipal range. But if Joe comes back in our February meeting and gives us a report on what the tax impact is on that, is that what you're looking for, Joe?
That was one of them, yes. And again, like Chris said and you said, thank you everybody for all your work. And it's really nice to see you get that number down into the budget we asked. It's very nice to see that. It's appreciated. Also, is there any way, Meg or Kat, can you go back in the slides and go back to the add and alt list? I know there's a couple other things on there. Just blown away with all the information tonight that we're getting.
Joey, you must be reading my mind because I just went to Anna to see if we can get that slide up. And so she's working on it right now so we can discuss. I just went to see Anna. So she's got to stop the screen save and then she's going to bring up the slide. I think not that one, not that one.
Next one.
One more, I think. One more, Anna. Hold on, we'll find, it's harder on the video, so we can, let's see, just bear with us.
Yeah, if she needs more time, we can somebody else's question.
Yeah, no, it's coming right up. It's not this,
Yes, that's it.
yeah, this is, yeah, okay. That one, and then I think the next one too.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you go back to that previous one first, where it said the walls and such.
Yeah,
Yeah, there you go.
yep. Thanks, Anna.
So just a quick question, stone in lieu of masonry, what would be the significance of that?
Well, again, this is Richard. So what we had suggested initially was a stone veneer on the bottom part of the building. One of the members of the committee suggested more articulation on the exterior. So we said, well, we can certainly do that. Other members of the committee felt, well, maybe that should be considered an add alternate in the project. And so if the bidding is favorable, for example, I mean, the way we would handle an add alternate is that we would design it into the project, wait for the bids to come in. We would have a very firm number from the bidders for these add alternates, and then the committee would have the ability to make a final decision. So stone in lieu of masonry, it would be an enhancement on the exterior. It's really up to the building committee after the bids are in to make that decision.
Okay, and then one more for you. You talked about how we saved some money on technology and stuff, but now we have an additional allowance for technology.
Yes, that's correct. So knowing that there's a very wide range of furniture quality, furniture features. Sometimes there are furniture items that are proprietary and consequently less competitive. For instance, we did a project in which members of the school administration and the building committee wanted to have certain features such as mobility, furniture that's mobile and more flexible. There's a cost associated with that. So we can bid those features as add alternates. We can also add technology items that haven't been invented yet, quite frankly, whether they're additional digital displays or virtual video technology that can be added as an add alternate to the plans and specs. And if the bids are favorable, again, the building committee can choose to add those things. That's I think the best way to describe it.
Oh, thank you for explaining that. Appreciate it. And can we go to the next slide, Anna?
That one, Joe?
Yes, sir. And my last would be about the Route 4 improvements. Obviously, it says not for state and reimbursement. So obviously it would be what, increasing the entranceway to and from, exiting and entering Monteith Drive, and light stuff and crosswalks are we looking at?
So this is actually on Route 4 itself.
Mm-hmm.
There is included in the construction cost improvements to Monteith Drive itself. Right now, it's not wide enough for 2 legitimate lanes exiting, and so we would make those pavements wider on both the incoming as well as the outgoing sides of Monteith Drive. That's all built in.
Okay.
The actual Route 4 improvements, which is a state road, it's not a town road.
Right.
That's what's in this line item, the 763,000. And since it's considered off-site, it's consequently not eligible for reimbursement by the state for school projects.
Can you elaborate what more? What are we looking at? A bigger road? What are we looking at to do over there?
Yes, there's some widening of Route 4 in order to create a turning lane so that traffic can bypass people who are in a queue waiting to make a turn into Monteith, either northbound or southbound on Route 4, and also signalization improvements as well. So that's something that we have not designed. We were able to budget it by creating some conceptual diagrams that were done by our site consultant. Those were reviewed with the town engineer, and the town engineer agreed that while these improvements would be desirable, there would be a whole process of going to the state for state approval, possibly state transportation money. But at this point, the committee selected to identify this as a potential improvement, but it's not truly required to meet educational specifications.
Okay. So for all the add-ons, do we need just to put them out to bid just to see where the true numbers will fall into place so we have a better idea what we're talking about?
That could certainly be handled that way as ad alternates, so we get firm numbers on bid date. That would be your call.
How much time would you need to get all that done?
Well, we would need to have direction from the building committee when they pull the trigger to continue with plans and specs. So assuming after referendum, you want the committee to proceed with plans and specs, and that design detail work would be roughly a year in time. So within that year's worth of design time, we would incorporate, should the committee choose, Route 4 improvements.
Okay.
As an ad alternate, if you want to handle it that way. I should point out that the first two items, mothball 1928 building and renovate 1928 building, that's an either or scenario. You do one or the other, you don't do both. The same thing is true for line items 3 and 4. It's an either or scenario.
Okay. Thank you very much for explaining it, Rich. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Gary, any questions?
I really don't have any questions right now. I think most of them have already been touched, but I would like to thank the Board of Ed, Building Committee. I know everybody's been putting a lot of time in on this project. But thank you, and we'll go from there.
Great, thank you, Gary. Yeah, I'd just like to say, first off, again, thanks to everyone here. The energy savings, when we're talking about the energy efficiency, I appreciate, Richard, you pointing out we are already very energy efficient. It's just trying to take it to that next level. And clearly, economies of scale work in. Once you get to a certain level of energy efficiency, usually those extra percentages are multiples, not just little added costs. So that's something we have to decide as a council, as a town, as a building committee. I appreciated the comment about you recognize we're still trying to figure out if there are additional savings we can have. I think you heard that from most of us today. We did set the target range. You did come in within the target range, and we appreciate that. But in light of everything else going on economically in the world and whatnot, it would be fantastic to find more savings. So we appreciate your looking to sharpen your pencils and all. But a great presentation. I think we're all excited to continue and move forward on this. Before I leave the topic, are there any final or follow-up questions for anyone?
CJ, I have just a couple.
Go ahead, Peter.
On the motorized partitions for the gym, that's an ad alternate right at this point?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so maybe I'll ask this question of someone on the building committee. So if we don't have these partitions in there, how much does that take away from really maximizing the use of the gymnasium space? Are we limiting ourselves by just keeping this one massive space here?
That's a good question, Peter. Did we get Kathy Greeter promoted? She's actually the best person to answer that question, I think.
Hi, everyone. This is Kathy Greeter, Superintendent of Schools.
I think it would be something that our physical education teachers would prefer, because we do have classes both in the current facility in the small gym and in the large gym. And so we would continue that because we do run, we're a high school that has more physical education options for our students and graduation requirements. So we want to continue to do that, and we want it to, we would like it to have some separation so that there's focus in each class when it comes to our PE classes. And I also think after school hours, it would provide a lot of additional options for us and flexibility. So that we can run, more than one event in our gymnasiums like we can right now. I would want Richard to explain what's currently planned. This is an enhancement, but I'd want Richard to just explain without this what we have.
Sure. So our plan calls for a, flipping my pages.
I know there is some separation. I'm sorry to put you on the spot like that.
It's okay. I knew that's the nature of this meeting, so it's perfectly okay. So we have, gosh.
So does it just separate it by 50%, or can we get four separate areas out of it? Or I guess that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have the details in front of me, and I don't want to misrepresent it. So we did talk about a motorized partition. Right now, in the existing building, you have partitions that don't work, and they were manual partitions. So I don't know how much you want to partition this future gym. I think we had envisioned separating it into halves so that you could have separate teaching stations. But I don't want to misrepresent it. I think I would like to, in a follow-up meeting, elaborate a little bit more, if you don't mind.
Yeah, that would be fine. I'm just curious because I didn't know if we can get 4 spaces out of it, or if this was just limiting us, or this partition was just for getting 2 spaces out of it with the partition. So that, yeah, please, if you could follow up, that would be great. One more follow up. On the reimbursement side, how are things looking? What are you hearing on the state reimbursement? How, what is someone potentially reading the tea leaves? Are we still going to get our full reimbursement? Has any insight on that, how it looks?
That might be a question for Chris. Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. This is Chris Cycli. Yeah, all indications right now is that the reimbursement will be based on exactly where it is right now. So your 20% is still going to hold. There's been no indication that that's going to change and increase at all. Right now, we're still projecting that's going to stay true to that percentage.
Okay, that's good. One more, I'm kind of jumping around here. Will there be more renderings of the project for the public to see in the next couple of weeks or couple of months? Because based on the presentation tonight and the documents that I got tonight, it's pretty limited on what the building will look like. And I think people want to know what it looks like, quite frankly. And even more interior renderings of it. So if there's more, I hate to say it, pictures, but that's how I'll boil it down, of the project. If you could get them out there, that would be great. I think the citizens would love to see this project.
More pictures are available.
Excellent.
So I was told do 4 slides, and then I begged, can I do 5 slides? So we have more material to share with you and members of the public in future presentations.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, everyone. Sorry, I'm all set, CJ.
Just
Okay, great.
TJ, could I just jump in a
Meg,
little
go ahead.
on, this is Megan Guerrera, on Peter's questions, a couple things around reimbursement. Just as kind of a side note, we were actually at the Board of Ed meeting last night, and our representatives were actually at that meeting last night, and there was a pretty healthy discussion around reimbursement and reimbursement rates. And so we were heard, I think, around that. The Board of Ed did a great job advocating for the town, for the district around reimbursement and what this means to us and the impact of reimbursement to a project like this in a town like Farmington at a rate of 20%. So it's kind of good to know that information, and if there's additional conversations happening around that. And then the other piece that I do want to mention around the pictures too, Peter, was a great question. It is something that we've been working very hard on, not only on what TSKP has been able to provide us as far as schematic design pictures, but also representing something to the public, which I think is going to be very impactful, which is more like a side-by-side presentation of this is what it looks like today, and this is what it's going to look like tomorrow. And I think that kind of view for the community is really going to make a difference to understand it. Sometimes when you go into the current facility, until you know what we can have and what we should have, it's kind of hard to really understand and really see the meaning behind a design like this and the impact to learning, impact to the students, impact to the town and the community, and what kind of asset this really could be. So there's a lot of work we still need to do around that, but we know the importance, and I think you're spot on in identifying that that's something that's going to resonate with the community and make a difference and really, really help them understand this project in the way that they need to.
Thank you, Meg. Kathy, I think you had a comment.
Kathy Blonsky, thanks to the building committee in this presentation. It's excellent. I just wanted to make sure that there was clarity on the add alts and the exclusions. That the add alts were something that if the budget allowed, those would be things that the building committee would look at, and that if the budget allowed, they would add back in. It would be part of the package. And these exclusions, I think, are something different. And I think some of them that the council and the committee hasn't fully vetted yet. One where you're talking about the mock wall or renovate, and that would be information that CJ asked to come back with. But the other thing is the Route 4 improvements, and I just wanted to make a comment on that, is that one, I wouldn't recommend that be an add alt, and that's not what it says here, but the reason for that is that that's a state road, and that we would go through the state process and be able to get reimbursement through that. So I think that would be a separate project and something that Russ has been looking at, our town engineer, and that would be a separate project altogether. And again, that it wouldn't be reimbursable through the school project, but I think it would be reimbursable through the state and the state project. So I just wanted to have clarity on that, and that I think that there's, again, the two different ideas is the add alts and then the exclusions. And of course, on the energy savings and the physical plan, that hasn't been discussed. I think you need more information, the council does, but whether you would want to make that an add alt or, make some decisions about that. But right now, the committee's not recommending them to be add alts. That was only the slide before. That was the add alternates. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone was clear on that.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thanks for the clarification.
Kathy, can you have Anna go back to that next slide again?
The
Just
one
so I can-
behind it? Yeah.
Thanks. Thank you.
Can I just make a quick comment? We had a question last night around this slide. It talks about the items being prioritized on this list by the building committee. That is not the prioritized list that you see there. That is just the list. So we will, obviously, as we're managing through the budget, as Kathy Blonsky just mentioned, we will look at these and really think about the priority, impact learning, all those things when we're making those decisions and thinking about those new bid prices and what that means to the overall budget. So I just want to make sure everybody's clear on that. It's not that we prioritize that list. It's just that is the list, and we will move forward as such.
Great. Thank you, Meg. Brian, I see your hand up.
Thank you, CJ. It's Brian. I just wanted to pick up on something that Meg said, and I just wanted to start off by saying I want to thank the committee for this presentation and making a very difficult and sometimes confusing presentation of facts and figures very simple and very straightforward and very easy to understand. I think that's really helpful, not just for us as a town council, but for the town to see as they ponder, moving forward with this project. One thing I didn't see here that I'm sure is because we're only allowed a certain number of slides, but Meg, you mentioned the intrinsic value of the school or of this building, I want to say, to the entire town. And I think that's really important to say, to mention as we discuss this, because while it's important to understand the costs of everything and how it goes together and how we meet our goals, which we've done a fabulous job of doing that, of meeting all the goals. But let's talk about the soft facts and the soft values or the intrinsic values of this building, because there are ways that we can use this. I can see this increasing our economic development and really adding value to the community that I think I'm sure that will be part of the communications going forward. But in a formal presentation, it would be nice to be able to present the intrinsic values as well as the financial values of the building. And I know we don't have time for that tonight, but I would really love to hear more of that in February. And thank you really for this tremendous presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. I think that's a very good point. It's hard for us to, as you have implied, get everything into a presentation to give you what you need to make decisions moving forward, and kind of summarize the project in a way I think that makes sense. So you will see our communications definitely focused around why this building is so important. What will it do for our students? What will it do for our community? And I'm going to plug the newsletter, actually, that should be in every household now. That does a really good job outlining some of those benefits and really answering some very specific questions around decisions that were made around the project, but really does do a nice job highlighting this project overall. And as you said, what is it really going to do for our community? And what kind of asset are we going to end up with ultimately for the district and the town? So it's a very well taken, and something that I think that we can do through communications of all manner, meaning we will continue newsletters, we are going to continue social media campaigns, but we also want to start once we actually get to the point of determining referendum date of additional community meetings, albeit they will be virtual. Unfortunately, we will have that opportunity for people to learn more and ask questions and hear more about the project. So as much information as we can provide to the community, the better.
Thank you, Meg. And we are, just a reminder, going to be meeting on February 16th. Peter, was that your hand up? Or are you just cleaning the screen?
No, CJ, I'm cleaning the screen.
Okay, very good. And Chris, I see your hand in the air. Okay, very good. Just checking. Kathy, you want to talk a little, Blonsky, a little bit about the 16th?
Yeah, I just thought maybe I'd do a quick wrap up and see if this is where we all are at. So we have a meeting on February 16th with the building committee again. And what my understanding is, what I've heard tonight, is that we're going to review the survey results, and we're going to have a presentation by Tall Timbers Marketing. And so at the 16th, we're going to have a presentation about the survey results. You've also requested a financial presentation on the tax impact. So the council is going to see that from Joe Swetke, our finance director. I think we're also going to have some discussion to determine the referendum timeline, and we're going to try to get that squared away at the 16th meeting. And I think the council has asked for some more information on the 1928 building, on what the renovation includes. And I think there'll be I think you've talked about maybe some discussion about having it possibly be a separate question on the referendum, and we need further information about mothballing, what that 9 million plus gets us. The other things that we will talk about a little bit is the other exclusions, that the energy savings and the Route 4 improvements, and just finalize the decisions on that. So I think that was what I had for the February 16th meeting, kind of wrapping up what I heard tonight and what we've talked about. I don't know if I've missed anything, but that was my notes.
That sounds pretty thorough. Anybody hear anything that was not there or did not hear something they would have liked to hear? Great. I think we're in good shape for February 16th then. We look forward to seeing you all again, the Board of Ed, the Building Committee, our architects, designers, and Tall Timbers as well. So thank you very much for that presentation. With that, we finished our comments. We are moving to agenda item D, which is our public comment. We do this in two different phases. The first, we will go to the town clerk for the reading of all correspondence that the town has received prior to this evening. And then I'll give you the instructions for our second half, which is anyone who is on the line with us tonight to give public comment. So Paula Ray, I will go to you.
Okay, we have two comments that came in before the meeting. The first one is from Brian Hendrickson, 165 Main Street, Farmington. Dear Town Council, I hope this communication finds you and your families healthy and safe. I'm writing to you about the recent story in the Farmington Valley Press regarding Farmington's Historic Commission. The article raised significant concerns and issues regarding the qualifications and process to appoint full voting members who make important decisions about historic district as a whole and individual properties. As a homeowner within the historic district, I would appreciate the full council reviewing and explaining in open session the rationale and process used for all appointments to the Historic Commission. This is especially important due to the Historic Commission's current involvement and advisory role in implementing the Village Center project. Transparent and apolitical boards and commissions are very important to high-functioning governance. Thank you in advance for taking this request into consideration. Sincerely, Brian Hendrickson, 165 Main Street. And I have one more, CJ. This one is from John Renahan, 27 Main Street, Farmington. Dear council members, thank you for all the energy and time you invest in serving our town. Farmington is an incredible place to live and work, and I am thankful that all of you volunteered to serve as critical decision makers and stewards of Farmington. While I hope you continue to honor our town's incredible history, I am reaching out to you today in hopes that you can raise the bar in how you appoint volunteers to serve on town committees and commissions. I think the current process lacks transparency and is broken. Best in class towns, teams, companies, and organizations publicize open positions so that they can attract the most capable people. Unfortunately, when opportunities come up to serve on various Farmington town committees, we do not actively publicize or solicit interest from the thousands of talented residents that live here. Too often, these decisions on appointments have been made behind closed doors based on political party affiliation. This flawed methodology has been committed by both Democrats and Republicans for years, and I implore you to pioneer a new approach. When an appointment needs to be made, you should, 1, publicize the opening and solicit interest in the position. 2, ask candidates to fill out a very simple one-page application. 3, share the list of interested candidates and applications to fellow town council members for review and discussion. If you think you already follow an appropriate methodology in how you handle appointments, I encourage you to share your approach and methodology publicly. To remind everyone, Farmington has 21,000 plus or minus registered voters. Approximately 7,000 Democrats, approximately 5,000 are Republicans, and approximately 9,000 are unaffiliated. You were elected to serve all of us, and we are counting on all of you to appoint the most qualified people to serve on our town committees and commissions. Looking forward to hearing back from you on your plans about approaching these appointments in a more transparent and thorough way. Thank you, John Renahan. All set, CJ.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you to Brian and John. We will now move on to any of our participants, our attendees here. Our rules are as follows. Please state your name and your address. And in respect to others who are looking for the opportunity to speak, please limit your comments to 5 minutes. And it looks like the first hand up tonight is John Renahan, who we just heard from. Go ahead, John.
Hey, thanks, CJ. I'm John Renahan. I live at 27 Main Street. Again, whenever I hang out with you all and participate in these meetings, I'm always impressed by the level of energy and investment you all make as volunteers. So thank you. I'm not going to repeat my letter. Thank you, Paula, for sharing it and reading it. I guess what I'm hoping to do is kind of give you guys a pep talk. I love our traditions in Farmington, but how we approach committees is one we need to break and upgrade how we do it. And you guys have set a precedent there, I think, with some of the committees, the recent committees, whether it be the FHS Ad Hoc Mascot Committee or the Equity Task Force. So I think we know how to do it. We just got to do it more consistently and more open. And we have unbelievable, as you know, neighbors, talented, experienced people that we could tap into more if they knew more of the opportunities to serve. You know, one of the recommendations I think you'll see coming out of the Equity Task Force, and they call them small wins or quick wins, is, and this isn't unique to a town council, but traditionally when we try to build a more inclusive community, again, we need to be more open and transparent, because, you know, our default is we're on a committee, we appoint people that we know or that we're on other committees with. And again, a diverse, strong, qualified team is going to make the best decisions for Farmington. So I just implore all of you to just reconsider on our approach and keep Farmington the best in class town it is by having the best in class people that exist all over town serve on these committees. So thanks for considering it. Appreciate it.
Great. Thank you for your thoughts, John. We'll certainly take those into consideration. Next, I see Tim Kelly's hand up.
CJ, can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much. Tim Kelly, 62 Westview. As we head towards budget season, I know the council typically invites our Connecticut elected representatives to attend a meeting for some dialogue. I would like to request that on that meeting agenda, you have the public comment before our representatives take the stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Appreciate the thought. Patty Boy Williams, you are next on the list.
Thanks, CJ. Hello, Patty Boy Williams, 17 Westview Terrace. Good evening. I'm here tonight to voice my support for the schematic design put forth by TSKP and to encourage you to continue to move the project forward. I'm encouraged that February 16th, you'll be talking about a number of items, including the referendum schedule, but this process did start approximately maybe a little more than 2 years ago now. And there has been significant opportunities now for public involvement, and I'm looking forward to there being more to encourage good turnout and a positive vote. But the longer this project continues, the more money we are putting at a failing building. I think Chris Fagan mentioned that tonight already as well. So I think from a fiscal perspective, it's also important to make sure that we move along in a way to stop spending money on a building that is failing. The other comment I have is that we continue to explore options and additional steps for reducing our environmental impact with this new school. The current schematics demonstrate and state that the new building would be more efficient than the current building and will have lower energy costs, which is good because the current building has portions that are almost 100 years old, and anything that is newer should be better. But it's 2021 and that's not enough. The existing building, we need to strive to do better, and hopefully we can do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Patty. Appreciate the thoughts. Next up, Pierre Gurdon.
Hello?
We can hear you, Pierre. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, sorry about that. I was actually double zooming two different calls at the same time. But I appreciate the opportunity to speak this evening regarding the school project, and kudos to the building committee for all their work. You know, as I look at the project, it looks quite appealing and hopefully something that the town supports. I certainly would list, you know, a new high school and to address all the shortcomings. With that said, though, this is still a very significant project with a high price tag. And I did hear some commentary, you know, this evening with the board's or the council members' questions about to relook at things, and I do think that that is quite wise. To use a football analogy, you know, I think the ball's been brought to the 20-yard line. We're now in the red zone, but getting into a touchdown and getting this approved is really a lot of hard work in my sense. And I'd like to kind of share a couple observations. I know a survey came out recently asking what was most important about the support for this project. And candidly, I do think at this point, it's all going to be about the cost. It's going to be what the townspeople see the likely impact on their taxes and their costs to continue to live in town, notwithstanding their otherwise interest in seeing this important project. So I would suggest that the amount of financial analysis that is done and the various options and scenarios that the council looks at is going to be exceedingly important. I thought a few years back when the last proposal came forward, there were a lot of good questions, and I'm not sure the answers were as well thought out and well considered in terms of the various scenarios that could have been considered. So I think that it will be quite important that the financial projections for this project in terms of what it does for debt service is aligned with all of our other capital needs over the next 7 to 10 year period, because we do have very significant needs, including at the other schools. And I think it's important that we all understand that we can support the high school and then still do all the other projects that are exceedingly important. I do think it'll be a concern if some feel that other projects are going to be set off or canceled possibly by the high school commitment. And so in that regard, it's really about choices. And I want to just speak briefly on two items. There was been a fair amount of discussion about the 1928 building. I understand the history behind it and the sentiments, but candidly, as I look at what the building committee has presented, they've made a decision that that building nor almost the entire existing facility is part of the Farmington High School future. And in that regard, I'm not sure that we have the financial wherewithal to spend the kind of money to rehab that facility for a use that at this point is really known and perhaps not even needed. It also restricts the available footprint. So for example, by keeping the 1928 building, it pretty much limits the ability to put that additional softball practice field where it otherwise would go. So I do think that the council is going to have to think that through pretty considerably, because I kind of feel like the decision to build a new school is much about moving to the future, and hopefully we can present this to the town in a way that, you know, while there's some sentiment behind it, there's also an understanding that it's just not financially feasible. If you were to look at that space on a standalone basis, you could probably rebuild it for less than the amount it's going to take to repair it and remodel it. The second item, real briefly, is regarding the 900 wing. The last time the project of this type came forward, one of the sticking points was the cost to rehab the 1928 building for the Board of Ed district offices. And I understand the importance of the district offices. I just asked the town council to evaluate closely whether the benefits of placing that on the high school campus and redoing that building for somewhere upwards of $6 million for office space is a wise expenditure. I don't diminish the need, but I really haven't heard a strong argument as to why we come, if we were to make a buy versus lease analysis, making those of improvements to that building makes sense. I view office space as not necessarily special purpose space, and perhaps thing that the town could lease or purchase at an alternate site at a much lower cost. And perhaps if the 900 wing is worth keeping, maybe it should be kept as classroom space to create some additional capacity, which wouldn't otherwise not require the amount of remodeling and cost associated with this estimate. So I thank you for listening to my comments, and I look forward to the process as we work towards a referendum.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Pierre. I appreciate your comments. I see no other hands up. I will give everyone an opportunity to raise their hand if they wish. Going once, going twice. Okay, seeing no more hands, we'll be closing off public comment. Next item is item E, new business. Peter.
I'd like to make a motion under new business. I'd like to make a motion to add agenda F2 to the agenda, executive session for land acquisition directly after agenda F1.
Joe Caponeferro, second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Okay, that being said, our next item will be executive session. At that point, the council and others, as will be listed, we will go into an executive session. We come out of our first executive session, go into a second executive session. For those of you, the final 13 attendees there, not a lot more to see after this for you. I will leave you though, before you go, with a quote for the evening. This from Abe Lincoln. Be sure you put your feet in the right place, then stand firm. With that, Peter, actually with that, we'll be going into executive session. Peter.
Agenda item F1, executive session to discuss matters concerning pending litigation. Members in attendance in the meeting will be the town council, town manager, and town attorney.
Joe Caponeferro, second.
And council members, you have another Zoom link that you got sent. So just, you know that for the executive sessions.
Yep, we'll be departing this meeting, going into a second Zoom session. So all in favor of executive session?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Moving into executive session. Thank you.
Thank you, Council.
Thanks.